Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there to my actual left, as you cannot see on YouTube, unfortunately, is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I am doing well today. It is Monday, April 17th. We are entering, I believe, week 4 of the MLB season now.
Week 3.5.
3.5, 4. Yeah, kind of weird. But it's been a lot of fun, of course,
Yep.
you know, as we expected. Yeah, I don't know. Not too much to talk about right now that we haven't already.
Right, yeah. It is sometimes it is hard to find subjects and stuff. You know, we do have subjects for today, but like especially at this point in the year, you know, we've talked about the Rays twice, but yeah, no one has necessarily stood out, broken away on the on either side. Like the A's have the worst record at 3-13, but no one didn't really expect that. You know, teams are kind of like in the middle for the most part. But yeah, it's just fun having games on, fun watching, you know, some of our favorite players play and whatnot. I know personally, like, I've had a lot of stuff to, like, work on for school or extracurricular activities and just had the TV on in the background all day. You know, it helps out when you got day games, too, and you got, like, 10 hours of baseball to watch, so it's been great, yeah.
It's been, I mean, it's good to have baseball back. I know that it's been 3 weeks, but I needed it back for sure.
Yeah, and we got, you know, like 6.5 more months of it, which is great. It's awesome.
Which is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a plus.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's you know, some things happening in baseball. Today's Patriots Day, so as we are recording, the Red Sox are about to.
They just got delayed.
Oh, they just got delayed?
Yeah.
Well, they'll kick off at some point in the afternoon, hopefully. But what should we get into first today?
Well, we got a couple extensions to talk about. One of them is just breaking. Craig Mish, a Miami reporter, has had a scoop that hasn't been picked up by the national reporters yet. He writes for the Miami Herald, but the Minnesota Twins and pitcher Pablo Lopez are closing in on a 4-year, $73.5 million extension per sources, agreement to be finalized soon. Craig Mish is a guy that's always been pretty on top of things. I remember he was pretty much the main reporter to look for during the entire Giancarlo Stanton trade saga. Like, he had everything before Rosenthal, before Passan, so I trust him. I'm sure he's in contact with, like, Lopez's agents or something.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine he has sources close to Lopez, considering he pitched there for, you know, since, like, 2017.
Yes.
But yeah, Lopez gets 4 years, $73.5 million.
Yeah.
Big difference there. Got my numbers mixed up.
What a steal that would have been.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of aspects to the deal here, and to be honest, it surprised me a little that, you know, he gets 4 years here, and, you know, from a player's perspective, I understand obviously taking.
Fangraphs is so quick; they already have it in.
Oh wow!
Dang. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, it's a little surprising. He's only 27 right now. However, he does have a little bit more service time than your average 27-year-old. He came into the season with 4 years of service time. So, does did they say whether it buys off this year or not?
It does not. So it starts next year. I believe it would buy out 3 years of free agency because he's at four years of service time now, so he would get to 5 by the end of this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would buy out 3 years. There's no options or anything. It's just a straight up 4. I mean, I guess maybe there are, but they haven't been reported yet. This is very breaking, but it would be an average annual value of $18 million a year. That's about the qualifying offer, probably a little less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good deal for the Twins. Good deal for Pablo Lopez.
Yeah. So yeah, he's 27. So this takes him from age 28 to 31, where he's getting $73.5 million. If he does really well in the contract, he can get himself another big contract as well. So that's pretty good for him. And I like this. Yeah, as you said, good deal for Lopez, good deal for the Twins, because the Twins, outside of like Joe Ryan, they don't necessarily have a lot of long-term starting pitcher options.
Yeah, they have a lot of good starting pitcher options at the moment, but long term.
Right, right. You got Sonny Gray out there. He's approaching his mid-30s, and I think, is he a free agent after this year?
Sonny Gray is a free agent after this year.
Yeah, so he's a free agent after this year. Tyler Mahle is a free agent after this year, and also you don't really know what his performance is going to be like long term. And yeah, like, am I missing? Is Bailey Ober?
He's
healthy?
probably pre-arb. He's not
Yeah.
currently. Unfortunately, he's just had a hard time staying on the field. Yeah, I mean, obviously Joe Ryan is pre-arb. He made his debut last year. Bailey Ober, same thing. I mean, the Twins are kind of building something. In the 2027 season, they have Pablo Lopez, Carlos Correa, and Byron Buxton locked up.
True.
Pretty
true.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was good. The Twins had signed some good position players, so it's good to add a starting pitcher to the mix to have long term. And yeah, obviously they still need to do a little bit more to be considered among the top. And if you're a Twins fan and you want to think like, oh, is this a good deal? Is it not? Not that these were under the same circumstances, but a similar deal that happened over the offseason. Taijuan Walker got 4 years, $72 million. Taijuan Walker's career ERA plus up to that point was 105. Pablo Lopez's current career ERA plus is 109, so he's 4% better than Walker. And also, the bigger thing is Lopez is 3 years younger than Taijuan Walker. So I really like this deal for the Twins, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yes, this is very good.
Yeah. And the Twins aren't not nowhere close to the luxury tax. They're not airtight over there.
Yeah, and Lopez has kind of been leading the Twins rotation, which has been among the best in baseball. Their rotation leads the majors in ERA at 2.58. They're third in FWAR, behind only the Rays and the Yankees. And I mean, they have a pretty deep-looking rotation right now. One of the best that they've had in a while. Pablo Lopez, obviously, like I said, leading the way. 11.42 strikeouts per 9, a FIP of 271. And he has .7 FWAR. Sonny Gray right behind him. Joe Ryan. Kenta Maeda came back from the IL. He is over a strikeout per inning and hasn't walked a guy yet.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And Tyler Mahle, a very dependable starter. He has been giving up a few home runs, but that'll even itself out. I mean, he has a 25% home run to fly ball ratio, so
yeah,
I don't think that's going to continue.
Yeah, that's like more than twice league average.
Yes.
Pablo Lopez leads the entire MLB in strikeouts right now.
Wow.
I just saw the bold italicized there. Granted, not everyone has made their fourth start yet, but still.
Yeah.
It means he's getting innings and also getting strikeouts. And, I wouldn't expect him to end up leading the league in strikeouts. He's not necessarily a guy that always gets 11 strikeouts per 9.
I mean, DeGrom is pitching today, and he's probably like 2 behind.
Yep.
With one less start.
Right. But yeah, this should be good. It's not a long-term deal. They didn't sign him for 7 years. And really, really, really committed to him. So a safe deal. And for Lopez, hopefully you do well during this contract. You go back out on the market at age 32. You get another one of these contracts and set yourself up even more.
Yeah, that's pretty much the ideal scenario right there.
Yeah. And another younger, anything more on Lopez?
No,
All right, another younger guy, even younger than Pablo Lopez.
the guy who I think is still pre-arb
Um,
until the end of this year. Or no, wait.
I think this is his first
This is his
year
first year of arb.
of arbitration. Yeah.
Yes.
Logan Webb gets a 5-year, $90 million extension from the San Francisco Giants. It buys off 3 years of free agency. It will take him through his age 31 season, like Pablo Lopez's contract will. What do you think about this deal?
So Logan Webb is the first player that the Giants have locked up beyond the 2025 season. The only players that they have scheduled for that season are Mitch Haniger and Taylor Rogers. So, the Giants, they're a team that isn't afraid to spend a lot of money, but they, kind of have a lot of weird 1-year, 2-year deals that, have a pretty large average annual value, but they don't really have anyone that is their guy for the long run. And now Logan Webb is that guy. And on this current roster, I think there's no one more fitting to have fit that role. Logan Webb came into the majors in 19, struggled for a little bit, but then really broke out in 2021. We saw what he did in the postseason against the Dodgers. In those 2 starts, he was magnificent. And he's also a very good ground ball pitcher, which I think suggests a lot of good long-term stability. He doesn't rely too heavily on strikeouts or a high velocity. So I mean he has a lot of redeeming qualities, and I think that this is going to be a very good deal for the Giants.
Right. Yeah. And if you don't know too much about Logan Webb, Logan Webb's career story, he sort of his first couple years was kind of getting his footing in Major League Baseball. A couple short years with ERAs over 5. Started the 2021 season in the Giants rotation. Was doing all right. Got injured, and then when he came back from injury, he just started pitching like an elite pitcher. And ever since that injury, he has a 2.92 ERA and a 2.91 FIP. Out of 38 qualifiers since he came back from injury in 2021, he is 9th in ERA and 6th in FIP. The only pitchers ahead of him in FIP since Webb came back from injury in 2021 are Kevin Gausman, Max Fried, Aaron Nola, Corbin Burns, and Shane McClanahan. So Logan Webb is kind of an elite company there, and yeah, that doesn't even include his crazy postseason success that he had in those 2 starts against the Dodgers. And yeah, so the Giants, and this is a really good deal for the Giants because like the Twins, their payroll isn't necessarily airtight. The Giants usually spend a lot of money, and they tried to. They tried to this offseason, but they, ran into some weird situations with Judge and Correa. So they stuck to some 2-year, 3-year deals, and now they're extending Webb. First guy beyond 2025 that they're committing money to, and hopefully this is the start of a trend here.
Yeah, I agree.
However, I don't know how many other guys on the roster that you'd want to extend right now.
No. Well, I mean, the average age. I mean, if you look at all the guys that they've given multiple years to, it's like Jock Peterson, 31, Michael Conforto, age 30, Brandon Crawford's 36, Mitch Haniger's 32, Alex Wood's 32, Sean Manaea's 31, Ross Stripling is 33, Anthony DeScalfani is 33, Taylor Rogers is 32, Alex Cobb is 33, Luke Jackson is 31, Wilmer Flores is 31, Roberto Perez is 34, Darren Ruff is 36. They have overwhelmingly, I'm assuming, the oldest team. Not only that, but even their guys that are in ARB right now, like Jacob Junis is 30, John Brebbia is about to be 33, Scott Alexander's 33, J.D. Davis is 30, Austin Slater's 30, Mike Yastrzemski is 32, Tyler Rogers is 32. They have to have the highest percentage of plate appearances and innings pitched taken up by guys over 30 in the league. And Logan Webb, like we mentioned, is 26.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah. It's good to have youth on their side in that sense, and it takes him through his age 31 season, and there's no expectation that he would be any different by the end of the contract, because pitchers actually tend to do a little bit better in their early mid 30s, at least the better ones do, and Logan Webb is in that tier. But yeah, you gotta like it from a Giants perspective. They wanted to spend money over the offseason, ran into some stuff, and were able to spend money on their guy. Like, this is their guy. He's been in the organization his entire career, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's gonna stick around through age 31. What do you want to get into next?
I had a tweet thread, very very mini tweet thread on Saturday, and I feel like I wanted to get a little more into it. So on Saturday it was Jackie Robinson Day, of course, one of the most important days on the baseball calendar. Obviously, everyone wearing 42, honoring the legacy and the life of Jackie Robinson, a figure that goes beyond not just baseball but also the sports realm. He's an American icon, someone who represented a very important part of like the civil rights movement and freedom for marginalized communities. And I think this Jackie Robinson Day has a significance that didn't really get much recognition, mostly because it's kind of it's not exactly confirmed to be what I'm saying, but there are records suggesting that Major League Baseball played its first games in 1871. There was a little bit of discrepancy over that, and I think that's kind of why this didn't get a lot of recognition, but 1871 is, according to many, when Major League Baseball played its first games. It took 76 years for Jackie Robinson to break the color barrier in 1947, where he, of course, made his debut. He was he was one of the first black players, if not the first, to officially play in Major League Baseball and to really establish himself as a player in the game. And we just, obviously April 15th is the anniversary of his debut. That's when we celebrate Jackie Robinson Day. And this year was the 76th anniversary of Jackie Robinson making his debut. So, if you think back to 1947 and think, man, that was a long time ago, that's how long it took for black players to be able to play in Major League Baseball, with their white counterparts. That's how long it took, which I think puts it in a very interesting perspective that, they were shut out for that long. And I think something that doesn't really get considered is that there are a lot of black players that missed their opportunity because they were born a little bit earlier. And I'm not even talking about the guys like, Josh Gibson or Satchel Paige that, got to play in the Negro Leagues and, in some cases got like the very tail end of their careers in the majors. But, the Negro League started up in 1920, which coincidentally is the start of the live ball era. And Chris, you and I have obviously talked a lot about the dead ball era and how much was accomplished during that time. There were 3 position players that accumulated 100 wins above replacement in Honus Wagner, Ty Cobb, and Nap Lajoie. And I think that there's a lot of lost history there because there was probably a lot of potential black players in the 1910s and before that never got any chance to play professional baseball. And we'll never know. But I'd be willing to bet that those names would have been out there. So I feel like we should not only take Jackie Robinson Day to honor Jackie's life, but also to remember the potential lost history that we could have had.
Right. Yeah. And we're two guys that have gotten into the history aspect of baseball, especially over quarantine and whatnot. And yeah, things would be a lot more interesting if the talent pool was up to its highest potential, which obviously would have, if the color barrier had been broken a lot earlier, the talent pool would have been a lot higher. And yeah, it's easy to lose perspective on it now because we're two people that not only have we been alive for the entire time the color barrier has been broken, we've been alive for the entire time Jackie Robinson Day has been a thing.
Yeah,
it's been a thing since 1997. They retired it in all for all teams except for the guys that were already wearing it. And they've been wearing 42 for 26, 27 years. So yeah, we just know that, but it's easy to lose perspective on the history of the game and what it was like, late 1800s, early 1900s, Because there's a lot of people who we should be talking about that we aren't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll never know who those names were.
Right.
In the 1910s, in the 1900s, maybe even the 1800s. Who knows? One thing that I kind of realized, like, it's an interesting perspective to think about how, Major League Baseball is now just entering the point where half of its history has been integrated. We are just now exiting the point where most of the game's history has been discriminatory. And I was like, man, wait until we get to that point with, like, American history.
Yeah.
Because we're not even close to that.
You're right. So yeah. That was an interesting thread, a perspective I haven't really thought of because, obviously, I don't, that doesn't really get put out there much, and the weird the discrepancy on like when did Major League Baseball start? Because technically they celebrated 150 years in 2019. Because I think the Cincinnati Red Stockings started
but even
in
then,
1969.
But even if it's 1969 or 1869, we would have recently reached the point where we reached the halfway point between the start of baseball, Jackie Robinson's debut, and now. And I don't think any of that was ever mentioned.
If it was 1869, it would be worse because it would be a longer time with segregation.
That's correct.
So if it does go back to 1869, we're still not at the.
That's true.
At the halfway point.
So maybe it gets mentioned next year. I don't know. I can't do immediate math in my head right now.
Yeah, lots. It's 4 digits.
I think that would be that'd be 78 years. So it'd be 2 years from now.
Right.
Another 2 years from now, where we reach that point.
Yeah, and for two, sort of history buffs, guys that, or baseball history buffs. Clarify.
Yeah.
Is two baseball history buffs. It provides a lot of perspective because we did the history series on our show back in 2020, 2021. Did a lot of pre-integration players but they were playing in a lower talent pool, unfortunately, and it would have been nice to know what that talent pool would have looked like.
Yeah.
For sure. An interesting thread you had, and as we move on to some more baseball news. We could break them down a little bit briefly.
Yeah.
But the Texas Rangers, are they leading the AL West?
They are leading the AL West.
Look at that.
Yeah. The Angels are 1 game under 500. The Mariners are 500, and the Astros are, I think, 2 games under, actually.
So, and the Rangers, they went to Minute Maid Park, faced the Astros, took 2 out of 3 from them. So, and that wasn't even with, they didn't have DeGrom on the mound at all. It's a pretty good look for them.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about the Rangers?
Well, they've definitely been what we thought they were, is that they are pitching really well and their hitting is kind of meh. They don't happen to be doing anything particularly well on the offensive side of the game, or at least the non-pitching side of the game, because they have they rank 21st in position player F4 at 1.3. They have a 98 weighted runs created plus. They have minus 1.5 BSR, which is base running, and minus 1.9 defensive runs above average. So, and it's Corey Seager is now hurt, and I mean, if you look at their lineup, like, you see how thin they are with their offensive depth. They did score 9 runs last night without him against Framber Valdez, but regardless, there are certainly still some question marks. But on the pitching side, they rank 4th in pitcher F4, behind just the Rays, Mariners, and Yankees. It looks like a lot of that is due to their bullpen because they weren't top 3 in. Yeah, they have the highest bullpen, or they're tied for the highest bullpen F4 with the Orioles, Pirates, Mariners. So their bullpen's been outstanding so far. It's been led in F4. Actually, it's been led in general by Will Smith, believe it or not.
Yeah.
In 6 2/3 innings, he has 12.5 strikeouts per 9. He has a 1.35 ERA and a 1.97 FIP.
Yeah. I was looking at the Rangers last night out of curiosity because I knew we would discuss them today. And yeah, the bullpen did surprise me. They have the second best FIP in the Rangers bullpen has the second best FIP. So I dug into that a little more, and I realized they have the lowest home runs per nine.
Yeah.
Which that makes their xFIP a lot worse than their
How
FIP.
does Ian Kennedy have a negative 16.7 left on base percentage?
Maybe he came in extra innings or something.
Nah, I get that's probably it. Yeah.
I guess that's how they calculate it.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it is interesting. But with the Rangers also, so I dug into why they have the lowest home runs per nine a little bit, and tried to see if it was more luck or if they were actually, if the fly balls they were allowing were very softly hit or something. The Rangers bullpen has the third lowest expected slugging against and the third highest pop-up rate. So, maybe I don't think it's strategic. I think it's just how it's lined up. But, maybe not necessarily looking at the xFIP there because they have a low expected slugging and a very high pop-up rate, which obviously that's always going to land as an out. So, yeah, the Rangers bullpen so far doing very well, even outside. Brock Burke hasn't been their best reliever. He should, he'll probably end up being their best reliever, but he's allowed a couple of runs so far. But you got Will Smith out there doing well. It's interesting.
Yes, it is.
And yeah, I really want Corey Seager to get back out on the field because it just looks it was so cool to see him have an actual him doing actually well and not having the shift ruin his chances. And he had a 406 BABIP, which not too sustainable, but he was hitting the ball extremely hard. He has over 1,000 OPS, and left hamstring strain. Hopefully that gets taken care of, resolved, whatnot, all that, because what Corey Seager was doing, it's a no shift world, and he's excelling in it, like we all expected.
Yep.
Anything, and by the way, Jacob deGrom, don't look at his ERA. He's doing great.
Yeah. No, actually, do not look at his ERA.
Don't look at it. In fact,
not that's not a way of saying oh, just pretend it doesn't exist. No, actually, ignore it. It doesn't mean as much as you think it does.
Yeah, and it's why I mentioned him as my non-overreaction from opening day weekend.
Yeah.
Because that start was extremely unlucky, and he has a 1.30 or 1.31 FIP or something like that. It's nuts. His strikeout to walk numbers are better than ever, and I think he's allowed one home run in 16 innings.
Yeah, it was against the Phillies.
It was against the Phillies, and it was it wasn't even a bad pitch. It was a fastball high in the zone, which usually guys don't get to, but Alec Boehm found a way to do it. Let me use Jacob deGrom as a thing to say. Don't really look at anyone's ERA through their first three starts.
Yeah,
There's
seriously.
a lot of weird things that can happen over the course of three starts.
If you're going to do that, at least look at their BABIP too.
Yeah, look at their BABIP, look at their expected numbers, look at their FIP. I'll excuse looking at solely an ERA after 30 starts, but not 3. It's not reliable. I had an argument with a with a friend, a guy I like.
Yes.
About Richard Blyer and his, I proposed the idea that he's getting unlucky.
Griffin Canning is
And
starting this week.
Uh,
Sorry, I'm off track. But I forgot he was still in the organization.
Yeah, that's a guy. I know he started probably last year, but that's a guy I haven't heard in years.
Yeah.
But yeah, in regards to ERA, I had an argument with a friend on Twitter. First of all, he called Richard Blyer a guy with no control, which is just silly to say.
Yeah, dude.
This was your first time watching Richard Blyer.
That's quite literally like saying Aaron Judge can't hit home runs.
It's exactly based on numbers.
I know that seems like an extreme example, but based on skill set, it's not.
Yeah, no. Yeah, obviously Daniel's not saying Blyer is as Blyer is as good as of a pitcher as he is
As
as
Aaron Judge is a hitter.
No, he's saying Blyer is as good at walk prevention as Aaron Judge is at home runs because Blyer, out of 291 pitchers to throw 300 plus innings since his career started, he has the second lowest walk rate, which, Aaron Judge is probably in that range since 2017 or something. But yeah, anything more before we get into players to highlight?
No, I think that was kind of it.
All right. Well, that will do it for the news. Now we get into first players or subjects that have really been standing out to us so far with our Monday, April 17, 2023 edition of How About That? Who do you have for us today?
So my How About That is a guy that I highlighted on this segment last year that has continued to dominate. I'm talking about Jorge Mateo of the Baltimore Orioles. He is slashing .344, .431, .651 for a .1083 OPS and a .192 weighted runs created plus. He is one of just 7 position players in baseball to have an FWAR above 1 this season, at or above 1. So he is in the top 7 among all position players in F4, as we all expected. At this point in the season. Between 2022 and 23, his average exit velocity has gone from 86.8 miles per hour to 92 miles per hour. His hard hit rate has gone from 32.7% to 44.7%, a 12% increase. His K rate has gone from 27.6% to 17%, a 10% drop. His walk rate has gone from 5.1% to 9.4%. That's a 4.3% increase. And lastly, his outside swing percentage has gone from 39.4% to 26.5%. So in essence, he's hitting the ball harder, and he's striking out less, walking more, and chasing less. Those are all really good things. His batted ball profile has also changed, but not in a way that you'd normally expect in most hitters. He is hitting a lot more ground balls and less fly balls. However, we're talking about Jorge Mateo here. He has 99th percentile sprint speed, so that means when he hits ground balls, he's going to do a lot better on them than the average player. In fact, he has a .421 BABIP on ground balls this year. Obviously, that'll go down a little bit, but it's not going to go down that drastically. It's not going to go down to probably league average.
Yeah.
He also has 93rd percentile outs above average, which is kind of solidifying him as a guy that can really do it all. He runs the bases very well. He can hit for contact and power, as we're seeing, and he plays very good defense. Lastly, his .467 average against breaking balls ranks 5th in the majors, and his .1118 slugging ranks 1st. This is among guys with minimum 10 batted balls against breaking balls. So Jorge Mateo has been outstanding for the Orioles recently.
Jorge Mateo.
How about that?
Very good stuff there. He's someone who he's going to play good defense. He's going to run the bases well when he gets on base.
Mm-hmm. But he just happens to have a 192 weighted runs created plus.
Yeah, last year his weighted runs created plus was probably in the 80s or something. Below average hitter. But if he's hitting the ball well, he's like a really, really good player. So that's very interesting. Good analysis there. My player to watch, or my player to highlight, my how about that, is we're doubling up.
Oh, wow.
We're doubling up on
the team? Okay.
Yeah. We're doubling up here with the Baltimore Orioles. Shout out to Saber50. Austin Hayes. So Austin Hayes on opening day went 0 for 5 with 2 strikeouts. And since then, he's hitting .382 with an 1115 OPS. In the span, he ranks 4th in average, 8th in slugging, 6th in OPS, and 6th in weighted runs created plus. Out of 230 batters with 25 plus batted balls in the span, Austin Hayes' average exit velocity ranks 24th. His expected WOBA ranks 10th, and expected slugging ranks 9th. With Hayes, he is hitting fly balls at the same rate as ground balls at 36.6%, which is the 26th highest rate out of 230. And on those fly balls, Hayes is hitting 467 and slugging 1267. Also with Hayes, he's hitting barrels at a 24.4% rate, which is the 8th highest rate out of 230 after opening day. So Austin Hayes, also of the Baltimore Orioles, earning a...
How about that?
All right, so that does it for how about that. Now we go from the highs to the lows, where we're talking players or subjects that have been underperforming with our Monday, April 17, 2023 edition of...
Slightly alarming.
Who do you have for us today?
So my slightly alarming is continuing a very unfortunate trend for his team, specifically new additions of his team. I'm looking at Gene Segura of the Miami Marlins. He is slashing 185, 228, 185 for a 413 OPS, shout out to Western Massachusetts, and a 15 weighted runs created plus. Among the 193 qualifiers, his OBP ranks 6th worst, his slugging percentage is 2nd worst, his OPS ranks 3rd worst, and his weighted runs created plus ranks 4th worst. So he has been unequivocally among the worst hitters in baseball this season. And he is only one of 3 qualifiers to not yet record an extra base hit, which is pretty concerning. He has always been a ground ball hitter, but he's taken it up another notch this season. His negative 2.9 degree launch angle ranks 3rd lowest among the 271 qualifiers. Also, his fly ball rate of 7.1% ranks 3rd lowest on the list of, I believe, 249 qualifiers on that list. He has also never had a career strikeout rate above 20%. Right now, he is at 21.1%. And this is because he is chasing more and getting less results on that. His outside swing percentage is at a career high of 44.5%. It has never topped 38.5% before the season. And its outside contact rate is at a 6.5% drop from last year. Look, we've seen a lot of Marlins position players that have struggled. Marlins position players that have struggled after being acquired by the team. We saw it with Jorge Soler last year, Avisail Garcia, Jacob Stallings, and Gene Segura is not helping that narrative at all.
Yeah. Gene Segura getting a...
Slightly alarming.
So my slightly alarming is similar in that he is a second baseman, probably early 30s, in his first year with a new organization, and that is Colton Wong, who I was excited about. I was excited that the Mariners got him. I figured, and I do still figured that this was a good trade for the Mariners to get rid of Winker and add Wong instead.
Mm-hmm.
However, Colton Wong to start the year is hitting 114 with a 329 OPS. Out of 193 qualifiers, he ranks last in average, last in slugging, last in OPS, last in weighted runs created plus. He also has the 13th lowest expected WOBA out of 193, and out of 250 hitters with 25 plus batted balls, his expected slugging is 7th lowest. This doesn't necessarily have to do with him striking out a lot or not walking enough. It has to do with his batted balls and his batted ball profile. His average exit velocity is 83.4 miles per hour, which is 4th lowest out of 250 batters. He also has a 20.6% sweet spot rate, which is 15th lowest, an 11.8% line drive rate, which is 12th lowest, and a 14.7% pop-up rate, which is 17th highest. 14.7% pop-up rate, along with the fact that he's actually hitting ground balls also at an above-average rate. Very bad recipe for a batted ball profile. Most of the time, if you get a lot of pop-ups, you also put the ball in the air and get more fly balls, more barrels. But Colton Wong is not getting any of that. He hasn't hit a barrel yet this year, yet he's popping up at a 14.7% rate. He's just not putting the ball in the right place, nor is he hitting the ball hard. So Colton Wong is getting a...
Slightly alarming.
Very good stuff. Real quick, the Texas Rangers have just dropped their City Connect uniforms.
I did see that, yeah.
What do we think?
It depends on the player for with the pants, it
Yeah.
depends on the player for me. Like some guys like are pulling it off really well. Some guys I feel like are not.
I don't hate them.
I don't hate them. No,
I mean, they're not my favorites, but I think
they could be worse.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think if I'm ranking them, I'm putting them at the middle of the pack for sure.
I'd agree. Yeah.
I think the worst ones are kind of the Braves.
Well, yeah.
Not
for lack-
because of like the message is good. They were obviously doing a tribute to Hank Aaron. That's fine. They just didn't do a lot. Like
it's-
my judgment on City Connect uniforms is a combination of how they look and how much effort it looks like was put in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Braves ones look fine.
Mhm.
It doesn't seem like they did a whole lot.
Right. Yeah, there was not much originality in that one, necessarily. All right, so that does it for players to highlight. So now we get into a preview of the week ahead. Where I will be talking about the series to watch. Daniel will be breaking down the day-by-day pitching matchups, and I am looking at some series right now, seeing what piques my interest here. In terms of some high-profile series, there's a few of them. I'd say Astros Blue Jays is definitely one to look out for. That's a potential playoff matchup this year. It could have happened last year if the Blue
true.
Jays didn't blow a
7-run lead and then
7-run lead.
go on to win Game 3.
Yeah. So yeah, could have happened last year, but didn't. But yeah, that'll be happening this week in Houston. Another higher profile series they sort of just played. It's Padres and Braves. Padres took 3 out of 4 from the Braves last time. However, since then, the Braves have won 6 in a row, albeit lower competition, but they are streaking right now. While the Padres, I believe, lost their series or split their series against Milwaukee. And speaking of Milwaukee will be heading to T-Mobile Park to face the Mariners, which are, two potential playoff contenders. I know the Brewers are leading the NL Central right now, and the Mariners are a projected playoff team pretty much. And another pair of projected playoff teams are the Mets and Dodgers, who will be facing off at Chavez Ravine. It'll be, Dodgers hosting. A lot of star players in action there. And when the Mets and Dodgers played against each other last year, it was usually some good baseball. So something to watch out for sure. So lots of good series to look out for, both on the not necessarily on the East Coast, but in the central of the country and the West Coast. West Coast particularly.
Yes.
Lots of late action to look forward to. What do you got for the day-by-day matchups?
So today on Monday, at any moment, we're going to be kicking off Shohei Ohtani versus Brian Bayo in the finale of Red Sox Angels at Fenway. It's going to be an exciting one for sure, both in Ohtani pitching and also Bayo coming back from the IL. In Rays Reds, we have Jalen Beeks versus Hunter Green. Hunter Green, always very exciting to watch. In Giants Marlins, we have the newly paid man, Logan Webb, going up against Jesus Luzardo. In Phillies White Sox, Zach Wheeler versus Lance Lynn. In Rangers Royals, Jacob deGrom will be going for the Rangers in Kansas City. In Diamondbacks Cardinals, it'll be Merrill Kelly versus Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty looking to kind of turn the start of his season around. In Cubs A's, Hayden Wesneski, who has struggled this year, going up against Kyle Muller, the opening day starter for Oakland. In Braves Padres, Max Fried coming off the IL to face a very good Padres lineup against Ryan Weathers. In Brewers and Mariners, Corbin Burns versus Chris Flexen. Mets Dodgers, we have David Peterson versus Dustin May. And matchup of the night comes from a series you mentioned, Blue Jays Astros. It's going to be Kevin Gausman versus Christian Javier.
That's you get the pop-up Prince versus the no Walkman. I don't know. The guy
with an awesome fit, but not a great batted ball profile. He'll give up a ton of hard hit balls that stay in the park.
Yes. That's exactly what his 2022 was.
Yeah.
What do you got for Tuesday?
In the opener of Guardians Tigers, Eduardo Rodriguez will be going for Detroit. Nick Lodolo will be facing the Rays for the Reds. The Rays have not announced their starter, but Lodolo has had an excellent start to the season so far. Alex Wood versus Edward Cabrera and his 1,000 miles per hour changeups in Giants Marlins. You will have Josiah Gray going for the Nationals against the Orioles in the Beltway Series in Washington. Jose Suarez and Clark Schmidt will be facing each other in Angels Yankees. Sonny Gray versus Chris Sale. We got a 2014 classic in Twins Red Sox.
Yeah. I mean, Sonny
Gray. One of those guys is still performing very well, and the other guy is Chris Sale.
Sonny Gray, yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to what he's got this year after what he did against the Tigers last year in the postseason.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, nothing better than a 2014 classic.
It's yeah. I mean, they're probably running short on time, but I mean, it makes it more special when one appears.
Yeah, for sure. All right. In Phillies White Sox, Lucas Giolito will be going for Chicago. I feel like most of the White Sox schedule has been National League. I don't know. I'm probably just dead wrong on that, but like they faced the Pirates earlier. They're facing the Phillies. I don't know. That's just most of what I remember from the White Sox season so far.
Yeah,
because like they were there when Kutch was, when he came back.
Yeah, I feel like they haven't had too many divisional matchups.
Yeah, no, they did just face the Orioles.
The Orioles.
In Rangers Royals, it'll be Nathan Eovaldi versus Brad Keller. Cardinals Diamondbacks, an interesting one here. Dre Jameson, I believe, is he making his first start of the season? He might be, versus Jordan Montgomery. They just put him back in the rotation. He deserves to be there. In Blue Jays Astros, Chris Bassett, who struggled this season against Jose Urquidy. In Cubs A's, Marcus Stroman versus Ken Waldachuk. In Brewers Mariners, Colin Rea, I didn't even know he was still playing. Good for him, against Logan Gilbert. And in Mets Dodgers, it'll be Tyler McGill versus Clayton Kershaw. Matchup of the night comes from Braves Padres. Two very similar pitchers, Spencer Strider versus Blake Snell.
Yeah, and they faced off not long ago against each other too.
Blake Snell has kind of become like a meme now because every start of his is the same. It's like 4 2/3 innings, 93 pitches, like 2 earned runs.
Yeah. 8 strikeouts.
8 strikeouts, like 2 walks.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, every at bat just goes like 8 pitches.
Yep.
On average.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not a ton is announced for Wednesday, I guess, as expected, but Cal Quantrill and Spencer Turnbull will be facing each other in Guardians and Tigers. Poor Madison Bumgarner. They just keep dragging him out there to get shelled every start.
Yeah.
He's going to be going against the Cardinals and Jake Woodford, who actually looked pretty good in his last start. In Giants Marlins, it'll be Alex Cobb versus Trevor Rogers. Taijuan Walker versus Mike Clevenger in Phillies White Sox. Max Scherzer versus Noah Syndergaard in Mets Dodgers. That's a 2016 NL East Classic, right?
Yeah.
Max Scherzer versus Noah Syndergaard.
Yeah.
In Pirates Rockies, it'll be Johan Oviedo versus Austin Gomber. It'll be Justin Steele and James Caprillion in Cubs A's. Charlie Morton and Nick Martinez in Braves Padres. Eric Lauer will be facing the Mariners for the Brewers. Mackenzie Gore will be facing the Orioles for the Nationals. Griffin Canning, who I mentioned earlier, I did not realize like the Angels were still throwing him out there. Good for him though. He'll be pitching against Johnny Brito, who looked great in his first 2 starts, but got lit up on Thursday. In Twins Red Sox, it'll be Joe Ryan versus Corey Kluber. In Blue Jays Astros, it'll be Jose Barrios versus Luis Garcia. And matchup of the day, I'm going to say comes from Rangers Royals. I'm going to go with Martin Perez versus Brady Singer.
Yeah. And with Bumgarner and the Cardinals, I remember watching him carve up the Cardinals. Matt Holliday.
Yeah.
Matt Adams, Pete Kozma. I mean, just diced him up in the 2014 NLCS. So I'm not worried about him.
Almost nothing is announced on Thursday, but everything that is announced is pretty worth talking. Tanner Houck is actually going to stay in the rotation with the return of Brian Bayo. He is going to be starting against the Twins on Thursday at 1 p.m. Graham Ashcraft, who has a very good ERA and also throws 100, is going to be facing the Pirates for the Reds at PNC. For now, I'll put the matchup of the day coming from Angels-Yankees, as it is Patrick Sandoval versus Nestor Cortez, a couple of lefties. I guess that is subject to change, but that's a pretty good matchup, and I feel safe putting it as matchup of the day right now.
I feel like it would stay like that.
It probably could.
Similar style. I mean, except I'd say Cortez rides with the cutter a little more, and Sandoval rides with the change
Slider
up.
offs. Yeah, slider change up. The off speed and braking stuff for sure.
But two guys who don't necessarily break the radar gun, although Sandoval throws a little bit harder, I think.
Yeah.
But they get, they get swings and misses. They get strikeouts, low walk rates and stuff.
Yeah.
So should be a fun matchup for sure. So yeah, that does it for this edition of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, when it does happen, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio, and watch our digital content, shorts and whatnot. Go check it out. And if you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Kern, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you probably on Friday, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball. Once again, we will see you then.
This conversation is over.